So today's main focus, ladies, is so I've been doing nutrition for a long time, and I have been primarily in the CrossFit field for the last 15 years of my life, and do work with people of all ages, sizes, men, women, both, like all of that stuff. But my primary focus, as I am 40 years old, and I'm beyond the peak of, like, when I was 25, being able to just throw myself into workouts and no warm up and everything felt great and great mobility and all that stuff, to recognizing that I am now in a group of women, surrounded by a group of women who are experiencing a lot of changes. And it can feel really hard when you are trying to do something like CrossFit or anything where you're trying to push yourself to try and figure out exactly how you should be eating to look and feel your best, whether you are carrying extra body fat, whether you are maybe even under muscled and you've been trying to gain some muscle, and there's so much conflicting information out there, so many things that women are focusing on, so many things that people have done in the past. And my goal, and what I really like to teach all of my clients, is that nutrition is not just one thing. There is a lot of things that all have to come together because your body has a lot of different systems. Like, your foundation is not just one thing. And I'm going to kind of start to go into this. I don't want to go too far into it, but that's my main goal for you guys today. Is I want you guys to be able to put all of the pieces together to understand what your body actually needs, how to build a nutrition strategy to take you from where you're at, which might be, hey, I'm frustrated, I'm dealing with, XYZ hormone issues, metabolic issues. I've tried everything to lose weight. I'm gaining weight no matter what I do. I have so much food noise. I'm so tired of counting every single calorie. Whatever is going on in your head, like, I am here to help you with that. So, I am a specialist in things like hormones and metabolism. I have certifications through NCI, through PN1. Also went to school for nutrition. So this has been my life since I was 19 years old. And it's funny how things have evolved, but the same things are still true. And maybe my focus on what I teach has evolved as well to target a specific type of demographic, because y'all are who I want to help, because I relate, I understand, and it truly brings me satisfaction. And even though I'm 40, women that I work with that are older than me, and I feel like, oh, I know what's going on, and I can help them build confidence back in themselves again. It's super, super helpful for me. And the other thing is, I also want you all to feel comfortable and confident being okay saying, hey, I work hard in the gym and I want that to reflect in my body. Because I think that there is also a stigma about, like, having aesthetic goals and that being something that we shouldn't be chasing. I am a believer in, your body is a side effect of your lifestyle. How you live is how you look. And if you live healthy, you live in a way that's going to support that, you are going to look good. And so I don't want people obsessing over their body composition, but I do want you to live a lifestyle that is like, man, I am, like, eating the right way to support everything that I need. And I know that in our age group, the 35 plus club, I'll call it, life is a little different. It's not just about the nutrition and the training. Going back to when you were in your 20s, you probably had a lot less responsibilities, maybe even in your 30s. Maybe your kids are older now. Your kids aren't toddlers that you're dropping off at daycare. Now you're juggling going to work, and now your kids are playing sports, and you're having to play soccer mom or volleyball mom or whatever it is. And your weekends are now full of travel ball and this and that. Or maybe you're not married. Maybe you're just career driven and you have a lot of responsibilities to yourself. Like, that's who I am. I don't have kids, but I have a full-time career that I love, and it does keep me very busy. So I want to make sure that you also are looking at, you need a different approach to your nutrition. That's somebody that might be not having any responsibilities. They're running on 9 hours of sleep. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a big difference there. All right. So my goal today is that you guys walk away with clear direction. I want you guys to understand what exactly matters in your nutrition so we can get through all of the what about this, what about that, this diet, that diet, understanding an immediate action plan that you can take. So like you might hear a bunch of things that are like, ah, that's me. Ah, I need that. But I want you to know what matters most for you. Okay. And I want you to really, as I'm going through things, like, that's what's missing for me. And that might be where you lean into, and I can help you with that. And then obviously an understanding of why what worked then isn't working as much now. And hopefully get you guys back to the basics that always work best. All right, that's really my main goal for you guys, and obviously answering any questions that you might have. Now, I'm going to talk a lot about fat loss because for a lot of my women, primarily, even if, and I always use the term fat loss whether you have 50 pounds to lose, 100 pounds to lose, you're looking for body recomposition. The majority of women are like, I'm looking a little puffy, or I have extra weight and I'd like to get a little bit leaner, even if you don't want to change the scale. Okay. So, like, you might want to maybe stay the same and build muscle, but you want to look better. Maybe you want to feel better. Or, I do have that case of women that has been chronically living on a diet to maintain a lean physique. And she wants that confidence that she can eat enough to be able to maintain her weight and not have to lose weight again. I call it like the fat loss PTSD. Or maybe you have lost weight in the past and the thought of going back into a deficit doesn't really feel comfortable to you because you remember how hard it was. Okay. Like I have loss PTSD. I never have to want to lose weight again. However, I got a little something I'm going to be doing coming up here, and it's going to be very uncomfortable. You guys are all going to all hear about that on social media here pretty soon. So, let's talk about a few things that I find very common. Okay. Calculator obsession. You have no idea how many people have reached out to me. Hey, Cheryl, do you do like macro calculations? Can you tell me how much what my macros should be? Your macros are not a calculation, it's a process of finding, and they're constantly going to be changing. But a lot of women also have spent so much of their life focusing on numbers and calories, and literally they go to the grocery store and all they see is numbers. They have no idea what it looks like, and they have no idea what their body's actually asking them for because you go to an
Right.
online calculator and the calculator says, "Oh, this is what your macros are." And you're like, "That's what I should be eating." But your body's like, I'm craving something. And you're like, "Nope, I shouldn't be wanting that because the calculator says I shouldn't be." So learning how to listen to your feedback is something that a lot of women are we all want intuitive eating, but nobody's intuitive, all right? Clean eating is a trap that a lot of women get caught into. In fact, after the holidays, I'm sure a lot of women, maybe were like, it's time to get back to my clean eating. I am so over Christmas cookies. I got to get this sugar out of my diet. So they restrict food groups. They start to make these unnecessary dietary changes and rules. And before you know it, I'm like binging again because I'm not eating what my body wants. Okay. And oops, didn't mean to do that. Oh no, go back. There we go. All right. Ignoring root causes. All right. So this is a very big one. All right. Not addressing things like stress, sleep, lifestyle factors. And when I say root causes, a lot of women go right to, yeah, I do. My hormones are off. No, your hormones are responding to inputs that you're giving it. And I know that, as I mentioned, life after 35, not as easy as it was when you had no responsibilities. I'm not telling you that you have to tell your kids, sorry guys, mom's off this weekend, and I'm just not going to go to work today because I'm tired. And, I know that there's things that have to happen, but we have to look at the root causes and not avoid them. We have to be addressing the root causes. And then obviously, all or nothing mindset. All right. Why are most of you guys making progress in the gym? Because you show up consistently in the gym, right? You know what to expect. You don't have expectations on the gym. You go there because it feels good, because it gives you something. But in your nutrition, it's always a measuring stick. Is this going to get me leaner? Is this going to, and if something's off or something's not happening, oh, I messed up. I got to start all over again. Imagine every day you go into the gym and like, oh, my squats fell off today, so I'm just gonna leave. Like you would never make any progress, right? You gotta realize that You have to change the all or nothing thinking on your nutrition and recognize that even if you were all in, you're never going to be all in because you're chasing a moving target. So every time you think you're optimally perfect for your body's changing and adapting to that. And you got to change again. So it doesn't matter how perfect you are, your body is not ever perfect. It's always changing and evolving. Okay. All right. Some other things kind of like to look at, things that people have tried. These are probably a lot of the main things I see: extreme calorie deficits, macro perfection. Elimination diets is big in the CrossFit world. Paleo, Whole30, no sugar, no grains. I've even had people coming from programs that are like, you have to earn your carbs. It's a keto, carnivore, all of these diets that eliminate food groups. And then obviously generic plans. Okay. I get a ton of freebie seekers. I call them freebie seekers, and I love them because I know that they do want to make changes, but they download a bunch of guides and recipes and macro calculations and macro plans and meal plans, and they never follow any of it because guess what? It's not going to work in their life for their body. Okay. So all of these are pretty common, along with some that I probably haven't mentioned here. Things like maybe Weight Watchers. Maybe you have worked with a nutrition coach. The majority of the people that come to me, I shouldn't say the majority, but probably 50-50, have worked with a nutritionist or a nutrition coach or somebody in the past. I get a lot of this too. Well, my coach at the CrossFit gym, she gave me macros. That's not a nutrition professional. That is somebody who has probably dialed in their macros. I was like, oh, this is what I did. Here you go. Do this. It doesn't work that way. Everybody's needs are very different. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about feedback. All right. And this is really, really, really important. If you, I also get this a lot from women. The feeling of defeat that they cannot stick to what they used to do. Okay. Like, I don't know why I just can't be consistent like I was then. All right. First and foremost, your life, like I mentioned, is very different. When you didn't have kids, you didn't have a job, all of that stuff is different. Not to mention, your body is different now than it was then. Just like when you were a teenager and into your 20s, your body changes, and into your 20s and your 30s your body, the adaptations on your body are so gradual. If I look back at, I had my own little serious setback in 2023, and it took me almost 2 years to climb out of it. But when I actually look back and try and identify like the catalyst, it was actually back in like 2020 that the 2023 downfall happened for me, which was, I guess I would have been 85, 95, oh 05, 15. So I was 35. What do you know? I didn't even realize that was going to be the correlation. But when I turned 35, believe it or not, that was about when things started going wonky for me. And it took about 3 years for my body to finally say, I've had enough. And my like whole world just got turned upside down. And I'm not going to turn this into about me, but it was a grind and very hard times. Okay. But we need to realize that you cannot go back to old things in a different physiology. Like your body has adapted and you need to adapt with it. And even myself, as I climbed out of the hole I was in, it wasn't, and I still to this day, I'll be honest, I left the gym on Friday in tears. In tears. I just want to get back to where I was. And every time I say that to myself, I have to remind myself over and over again, you cannot get back to where you were. You can make improvements on where you are. Like that is all you could ever do. Okay? So like same thing. We have to look at, okay, here's what's going on right now. I want to make better. I want to make better. In fact, I don't even chase PRs anymore in the gym. It's, hey, here's the beginning of this training block. These are the metrics I'm tracking. In 12 weeks, I want these metrics to be better. That's how I keep metrics to be better. That's how I keep somebody's echoing. So I'm going to just mute somebody. Heard it echoing. All right. Um, and if any of this is hitting home for you guys, I will make sure we have time to talk about things. We're going to get into how to do this though. Okay. Because I said I'm going to go into things. There is essentially, I think I have five or six pieces of the puzzle here. And I want you to think of this like a process that we're going to go through. And I'm going to take you from start to finish on your journey for figuring out how to eat to optimize body composition, hormones, health, and also how to make adjustments. How to know when you need to make adjustments, even if you don't know when what you should be adjusting. I want you to know, hey, this is a sign something needs to change, even if I don't know what I need to change. All right. So before you make any changes to anything, we need a complete picture. The first week of working with me, my main goal is, hey, I don't want you to focus so much on anything changing in your diet. Let me just see what your current diet looks like. And I know that there's going to be some changes naturally because whenever we have somebody watching our diet, we're going to be a little bit different. But we want to look at some things that we're assessing. Your nutrient intake. In my assessment, these are all the things that I try and cover. Okay. What is the quality of your food like? What types of foods are you eating? How much are you eating? Okay. This is not just calories and macros. It's also fiber. It's also micronutrients. Women that are like, I've been tracking my macros and I don't know why. Some women can eat 2,500 calories. No, I'm not losing weight on 1,500 calories. And I look at their diet and they're eating protein bars and protein shakes and bars and liquid carbs, just like stuff that's like not giving them enough nutrients. They're getting calories, but no nutrients. Um, Metabolic health. Okay. Have you had kids? What's your thyroid function like? What's your digestion telling you? Okay. How well are you absorbing the nutrients that you're having? Any inflammation markers? Okay. Things that I look at are things like brain fog, puffiness, the health of your hair, skin, and nails, joint pain. So normally when I see a client supplement list and they're on like curcumin and turmeric and collagen and this and that, like I'm like, yeah, this person's probably got some inflammation going on. They're trying to get rid of. Um, Recovery factors. So how stressed are you? How much are you training? What's your sleep like? What's the intensity of your training? Training age and lifestyle. So, like, what does your work demand of you? What kind of a job do you have? What kind of stress are you under? Your family relationships, your commitments, and obviously, like, how long you've been training for. In fact, I get this a lot from CrossFitters who are newer to CrossFit or newer to training, but I'm not pushing as hard as everybody else in the class because they're lifting so heavy and I'm just lifting lighter and this and that. Do you know that CrossFit beginners are going to have a bigger change or a higher metabolic need than a more advanced athlete because their body is under so much stress. Like that's even though they're lifting less, they have a higher metabolic stress from that because their body hasn't adapted to it yet. Okay. So things that we have to consider. Performance signals, like things that your body is telling you. So appetite patterns, people that don't eat after they work out because they're like, my stomach is sick. How your workouts are feeling. Are you getting injured all the time? This is probably the hardest thing for women over 35. All of a sudden, like I'm getting shoulder pain and rotator cuff surgeries and hamstring this and ankle this. I can't run. I can't do gymnastics. I can't do this stuff. All of that stuff is signs that something's not right. Mindset and history. So, like relationship with food, what you think about food, how you plan your meals. Are you a chronic, I'm going to do this cut and then, I'm going to go into doing whatever I want? Looking at all of that stuff, how much weight you've lost in the past, if you've lost any weight in the past. And then optional but helpful is lab testing. So if you do have some labs, I do like to take a look and see where hormone levels are at, any nutrition deficiencies that might be there, and metabolic markers. I don't request labs for my clients, but whenever I have a client that's like, hey, go to my doctor, I'm like, great. If they're going to run labs, let's get these things tested too. Because I will always tell you that your doctor is not going to run the labs that you want them to. They're going to be making sure that everything is, they're making sure that you're not sick. They're not optimizing for you to be your best. They're like, is she sick? If you don't have thyroid symptoms, they're not going to run it. Where I'm like, hey, let's run it before you have symptoms. Because guess what? If something's going a little bit lower, especially with women doing high intensity training, because it's very common, especially if you've been chasing fat loss for a long time. All right. Let's talk about some things that we need to understand when we're talking about considerations for energy needs. Because the overall problem that most women over 35 face is not getting in enough nutrition on a regular basis. Like whether it's they have been eating a specific diet for a long time and their body has just adapted, whether it's they're busy, they don't eat enough throughout the day, whether it's they're thinking that they should be eating less than they are, they have fear around that. It's a lot of things, but these are some things that you guys have to understand, okay? Your basal metabolic rate, it does decline with age, but not because of aging, okay? So typically what we see is changes in hormones, and those hormone changes might cause you to work out less. Maybe you're not working out as much, you're not lifting as much weight, so you're losing muscle mass. Those types of things are going to impact your basal metabolic rate, but it's not the aging specifically. All right. Energy expenditure, as I mentioned, does go down if you're not moving as much. Okay. Maybe you aren't as active as you used to be. So let's be honest, like before COVID, it sounds dumb, but people don't realize how much COVID changed how we lived. Like people used to have to get up and go to work. So they had to actually take time to get dressed and go to the car and get in the car and drive to the office and go from the office car to the parking lot to the office and walk around the office. And now a lot of people don't do any of that. They stay at home in their pajamas. I'm at home right now. Not in my pajamas though. So sleep and stress response. And then also, that's important because people don't understand. So I get this too. I wake up all the time to pee. Maybe I'm drinking too much water. No, that's a stress response. Okay. But things like that can impact your insulin sensitivity, your appetite hormones, and also fat storage patterns. So women over 35, they're like, all of a sudden, like, I feel like I'm gaining weight in my midsection. Like, these are common things that I hear. All right. And then your menstrual cycle. Women don't even realize. Okay. I know we all realize that our period impacts our mood, but not to the degree that you realize it until you have something like me on the outside. And I'm like, yeah, I see a 3 pound weight spike, and no wonder your gym, your workouts feel like crap. You're PMSing. Like, of course you're not going to feel strong. But women in the CrossFit gym, they tend to judge themselves. And when you get cravings, you're like, I shouldn't be eating these things. Like, those are your hormones signaling you. You feel puffy, you feel bloated. All of this stuff impacts things. And I say all this to you because my goal is that you have to learn how to be more intuitive with your body and be more intentional about testing the beliefs you have about what you should or shouldn't be doing. You need to really understand your body, what's going on. All right, here we go. You do not need a new bucket. Your bucket is leaking. All right. It was the best analogy I could think of. All right. I think that most women are always looking for one thing. And it's that didn't work for me. Let me try something else. And it's always like trying to start something new or trying a fresh start, when in reality, you can't have a fresh start. Your body and your brain are conditioned to think and react the way that they have from the years and years and years of output. Your central nervous system is conditioned to see some things as, fight or flight mode and some things as safety, right? So you need to recognize that right now you have to look at your nutrition like it's full. So the bucket being full is everything is working the way that it should be. But if there's some leaks in the bucket, things are pouring out. And instead of trying to get a new bucket because you can't buy a new body, we have to find the way to patch the leaks. We have to figure out what's missing. And this is also where, going back to that all or nothing thinking, women try and do too many things at once. Like you're already at max capacity in life with all of these things. Stop making life so much harder on yourself by trying to overhaul everything. And it's probably why a lot of times I have two clients that are most successful with me. Clients that have a pretty good foundation and they just need a few tweaks and maybe a different shift in mindset, or clients that don't have a foundation and they're not in a rush to have everything done at once. Like they're okay with like one or two things at a time. You don't need to fix everything at once. Even with my clients that are more advanced, I'm still normally only focusing on one or two things at a time and trying to get those things easier as it goes, because that's going to be more important than trying to fix everything at once. I will use an analogy of an air squat. Okay, going back to my CrossFit coaching days. All right, back when I used to teach seminars, you used to always talk about triaging the air squat. You see a person moving in the gym and their knees are caving in and their back is round and they're not getting below parallel and their heels are up off the ground and they got the butt wink and there's all this stuff going on, right? And their chest is down and they're looking at the it's just like all these things, right? Okay. What is like what is the first piece that we can fix? Let's find one thing. Okay. Maybe it's their back is round. It's like, hey, let's just put your chest up and then their back is straight now. Okay, cool. We fix that. Now you see that their knees are caving in. Hey, knees out. Okay, cool. We fix that. All right, now we're looking at their heels. Let's keep your heels down. Okay, cool. We fix that. Now it's like, all right, let's get below depth. Let's get a ball. Let's get to our target. Now we're fixing one thing at a time. Where either if I tell them to do everything at once, person's like, what do you want me to do? Right? Like it's fix one thing at a time. All right. So now that we have the assessment, we kind of know where we're at. We want to talk about optimizing. And this is kind of where we look at where are you at. And everybody on here is going to be at a different place. Not everybody's at the same place. We want to know where your maintenance calories are. Maintenance calories and macros based on your current activity and lifestyle. So assessment, 5'4" female, 168 pounds. She's got about 30-ish pounds to lose. She's walking 7 to 8 thousand steps a day, sleeping between 6 and 7 hours on a good night, doing CrossFit 4 to 5 times a week, mostly classes. And this is where she's at. Her current diet, she eats, she eats takeout most nights, and maybe she eats processed foods for breakfast, but lunch is normally like a salad. Like I kind of look at everything, right? I kind of take a look at things. We're going to figure out what maintenance calories are. We're going to optimize those calories with the right foods and also making sure that it fits her schedule. So, looking at building eating structure. All right. So, we're looking at, okay, what does her schedule look like? What time is she training? What time is she working? What does her work schedule look like? If maybe she wasn't eating lunch, I'm going to try and find ways to make sure her meal timing is in line with training, with her schedule, and also with circadian rhythm. Okay. A lot of people don't understand the importance of nutrition around sleep. And there's actually, I'm not a specialist in this, I'm not going to claim to be one, but there is something about like, I think it's called like chronotyping, where people do have like programs where they talk about like timing sleep with your circadian rhythm. And while I'm not going to get that nuance with things, there is a lot to be said about you should wake up hungry and you should have a little something before bed to help bring stress levels down and allow your body to sleep throughout the night. Because if you are doing that, if you're not doing that, typically what we'll see is a nighttime awakening from low blood sugar. Okay, so going into reverse dieting a little bit, this often gets overemphasized, and there are a couple of things that we have to look at. Most women don't need a full, like, freaking 6 month reverse diet in this, like, slow, gradual climb. The only women that really truly need a very slow reverse diet are women that are extremely afraid of eating too much food, and I have to work them up, or if they have been chronically underfed. So, like, I'm talking, you've been eating less than 1,000 calories a day. And for most people, what I find is, and this is just giving you my personal opinion, other coaches are going to tell you that, oh, first we have to do this like 6 to 8 week priming phase where we're going to be slowly increasing your calories and we have to stay there for 6 weeks. Like, no, most people are under eating and then they're overeating on the weekends. The majority of people that need a reverse diet, they need to just average their calories out over the week. Let's stop overindulging on the weekends to feed your social life. Let's start eating more to feed your workouts. And then we're going to even that out. Okay, that doesn't take me very long. And then learning intuitive awareness. All right, so your metabolism, your hormones, you have hormones that tell you to eat and tell you when you're full. You need to learn how to recognize them. I build meal structure first, but I also work on intuition. How many of you guys can relate to you eat lunch and you eat breakfast and it's an hour later and you're hungry again? Hungry again. Your meals are too small. your snacks are not filling you up, and the random grazing is adding up. You trying to avoid eating too much is causing way more calories to be consumed, and it's never leaving you full. So your body's being conditioned to just constantly crave that stuff. Okay. So I look at practicing intuitive awareness and looking to fill the gaps to make sure you are feeling satiated. Okay. Once we have you optimized, if your goals are fat loss, here's the magic of this. It should literally be just a calorie adjustment. I have been eating at maintenance right now for God knows how long, and it has changed and shifted a little bit over time. But if I really wanted to go into a deficit right now, I could just pull 20% from my calories. And I wouldn't even have to really think too much about it. I know exactly what I would pull out from my diet. That's the beauty of it. You get to choose for the most part where you're pulling from, with some exceptions. Okay. But here's where it's like we just need to know what maintenance is. Most women don't know that, and they guess and they use calculators and they try and figure it out, and it's why they continue to stay stuck. And they don't know how to not judge themselves when they go over on their calories a little bit, because your body isn't like in a deficit for one day. It takes days in a deficit to lose body fat. So if you're a little bit over and a little bit under and a little bit over, it's fine. It's all going to average out. We look at weekly averages, and that's really what matters most. You got to stop playing the number Tetris game and realize that, like, we can have some variables here, but you do want to know where maintenance is. And if you know what maintenance is, this should be pretty easy. It should simply be, where do I feel confident about pulling calories from? Now, I will say this, as we're going into this part of this is you want to have, I am not the coach also who believes that, like, all right, we're all in on fat loss for 12 weeks and then we're taking a break and then we're going back in for 12 weeks. Like, I don't think that that's necessary. You know why? Most people, their lifestyles bring breaks in naturally. Christmas, holidays, right? Maybe you have a vacation coming up. I Every client is different. If I have a client that their schedule is very routine, there's not a lot of variables, yes, maybe I do have to bring some diet breaks in, and I'll talk about why that's important. But for most people, it happens naturally. And the main thing is what's going on up here. When the brain fatigue sets in, that means you need a break. Most of the time, you know when you need a break. If you keep fighting the break, that's normally when things go haywire. Okay. So just a little thought there on that. And I might end up going into something that I already have in a presentation here that I'm saying ahead of time. That's because I get very passionate about what I'm talking about. Okay. In your deficit, here's what we're tracking. We're looking at trends, so energy levels. So how are your workouts feeling, energy throughout the day? We're looking at patterns. So obviously we're gonna, it may be one week I see a client had bad energy, but she also reported higher stress and not as much sleep. So that would not be a good way for me to track to say, okay, it was the nutrition. But if I'm seeing multiple weeks of poor sleep and low energy, I might say, you know what, let's try and bring calories up a little bit and see how you feel. Okay. Assessing hunger and cravings. If you're all of a sudden hungry all the time, might need to be looking at that as a time. Measuring performance. I get this all the time. I want to lose body fat, but I don't want to sacrifice my performance. You should not have to. Okay. If your diet is causing you to feel worse, that is not a good thing. We want to be feeling good in the gym. And then obviously, as I mentioned, nobody really has a period of time where they can guarantee nothing is going to come in. So we want to navigate what I call the messy middle. Okay. It's where you're in the fat loss phase and, like, you've got date nights, you get sick one week, you got an injury and you're out of the gym, like whatever. It's cold outside, the snow, whatever's going on. You got a vacation. We got to learn how to navigate through that, because guess what? Is your goal to live in a fat loss phase, or is your goal to live lean? Your goal is, I want to live lean and healthy. And if you're just only on the diet when life is perfect, that's why you continue to stay on a diet. And my goal is that you get off the diet. All right, no dieting. We want to be looking at living life a little bit differently. Okay. Hopefully this is hitting home for you guys. All right. Beyond calories and macros, for those of you guys that are into that world, It is not everything. So we want to make sure that we are looking at other things going on in your life that are impacting things. And I say this with empathy because I don't have children. In fact, I was talking to one of my clients yesterday, and I'm like, you know what? Like, I am very, like in a way grateful. I'm lucky. I'm fortunate. I am that I don't have a lot of that mental noise that maybe, you're a mom and you're like, I'm trying to make my breakfast and get out the door, but my kid's diaper is dirty and I have to change the diaper and I don't have time to do that and make my breakfast. Fuck it. I'm just going to grab a freaking donut. Like, like I'm sure that that shit happens. Like, I know, like, I don't experience that, but I can imagine that that's hard. And my goal is like, okay, let's get you your in case of emergency. Like, my goal is to help you adapt better and understanding how to manage stress better. Maybe you're an emotional eater. Every time you get stressed out, it's freaking, I want cookies. I want this. It's okay. How can we manage these stressors better? We can't avoid the stressors. How can we manage them better? And I am going to be honest, I don't have kids, but just to empathize with you guys, I have a very, very, very demanding schedule. I work 7 days a week by choice. Okay. But I'm a very driven individual. And if I want to be able to do what I want to do, I do have a very busy schedule. I wake up every morning between 3:45 and 4:15, and I do try and protect my nighttime. So I normally get done working by about 5 or 6, but it's very much a very go, go, go schedule. Like that's just how I am. So even on my Sunday, I'm going to get done with you guys. I'm going to eat something and then I'm going to go hop over to church and then I'm going to get back to client check-ins. Like it's just my life and that's how I live. Um, so we want to make sure we're looking at just beyond the calories. We're going to talk about tracking a little bit. Again, I'm going over all of this stuff because I want you to know that these are all the things that I do for my clients in an essence, helping them read things. But these are things that you guys can be doing on your own to look at. All right. Progress photos. Obviously, everybody loves the dopamine hit from the scale. But do you want to weigh a different number or do you want to look different? Okay. So body composition, progress photos. I also think body composition, yeah, I like the in-body scans. But I want to make sure that we are looking at them subjectively, knowing that like they're very easy to skew and keeping things as consistent as possible when you're tracking them. So like you're weighing in, I'm sorry, you're doing them maybe the day after a rest day before you've eaten anything. You're not having any variables there. Recovery trackers. So, and I also don't want you guys getting like over thoughtful on these things. These are just things that you want to be looking at. I look at tracking sleep quality, HRV, recovery. These types of things are really important. Resting heart rate are really important for those of you guys that do really care about, how your body is impacted by stress, by training. I have a client who I work with who had avoided wearing her Whoop band for a long time because it kept telling her that her recovery score was so low and it was making her feel like stressed out. And I'm like, okay, let's get you to understand what that recovery score is telling you. And now that we're kind of learning how to work with the recovery score and what that recovery score is telling her, she's understanding it a little bit better. And that helps her a little bit knowing when she should pull back in the gym and whether it's good to track or when it's good to push. And then obviously tracking your cycle. I don't really use an app, although I do have clients that do use apps. However, it's important to track trends, what's going on. So a lot of my clients, in fact, I just had a client, she's like, I don't think that I can eat these foods because my gut was all messed up. But I looked back at her notes and she had just passed ovulation. So I'm like, no, I think it was your hormones. Your hormones play a huge factor in your gut health, in the way you're feeling. And you don't need a special like program or anything, but it might be, maybe the week of your period is not the week to be working on like white knuckling a deficit. I have clients where I'm like, hey, you might have a couple of days over on your period. That's okay. Like that's still not doesn't mean you're going to fail. Your weight might be up a little bit. Changes in progesterone and estrogen are going to change your weight on the scale. So we look at tracking overall data, but we're not looking at like day to day. We're looking at trends. We're keeping track of the daily data, but then we're taking a look at the overall trends over time, not getting hyper focused on one metric. So if I wake up today and I'm up 2 pounds, I'm not like, oh my God, I gained 2 pounds. Like, no, it doesn't happen. I've been doing this for a long time and I still have fluctuations like that. And it's just knowing that, okay, Maybe my body is under more stress. Maybe my digestion isn't, as good today. Maybe I'm holding on to more water. You know, maybe I did not work out yesterday and my glycogen stores are topped off. A number of things impact the scale that are not related to your body fat. Okay, so these are all things that we want to track. All right, so kind of I went over everything and I want to just kind of show you that this is kind of how, and I put 6 month framework because, sorry, drinking my water, drinking my water. I should put it, I didn't even put hydration in here, but hydration is important too, ladies. Um, when we're looking at building a plan, 6 months is a good timeline if you have about 10 to 15 pounds to lose. You're starting off with a pretty good baseline and you're looking to really optimize. That is enough time to kind of go through an assessment phase, drop anywhere from like 8 to 15 pounds, and then reversing into a transition phase. Now, if you have more than that to lose, that does not mean that you can only do this for 6 months. I'm just giving an overall 6 month framework. If you have more than 15 pounds to lose, you might need to do this a little bit longer, but you still should have some breaks built in naturally, whether it's from vacations or you intentionally take a break, whatever. We don't want to live our lives always, always, always being in a deficit because being in a deficit, it is work. You are more dialed in on your nutrition when you're optimizing.
No, he's
Okay,
trying to get
so
up.
those are all things that we want to think about. Okay, so the first month we are assessing and we are optimizing. Okay, this is why I love talking about this because a lot of women you join these. In fact, I'm going to talk about my jump start, but a lot of people start the new year like, let's go, fat loss. And you have those people like, oh, I lost 10 pounds in the first 3 weeks. Like, yeah, that's nothing. That's just water. Like your first month, your body is just starting to figure things out. So we want to establish a baseline, find those metabolic leaks, make sure that we have consistency with, your meal prepping, however you're doing that, what works with your lifestyle, your structure. And the main thing is if you have been spending a long time in a diet phase or chronically thinking about food, rebuilding some trust with your body again. Okay. Then we're looking at the deficit calories. I'm going to be honest, oftentimes as I optimize things, weight starts coming off naturally. Sometimes it takes me about 4 weeks to kind of get that person into a deficit, but that's when we're setting the deficit calories. We're implementing about a 20% with some built-in flexibility. We don't focus on perfect macros because your body's not a math project. It's mostly like making sure you're getting enough protein, making sure that we're watching, that your energy is staying, good for your workouts and that you're getting the right kinds of food for your hormones. So we're looking at food quality. And that's really when we're kind of in that sweet spot for body recomposition, which is what everybody wants. Everybody wants this. I want to lose fat and build muscle. Like, that's it. And that is what we're all looking for, whether your goal is to lose 50 pounds or your goal is to lose 5. We all want to always be preserving and building lean muscle tissue and dropping body fat. Okay, so that's where we're evaluating all of those. We're tracking everything, and we are refining based on feedback, based on changes, if things are changing in your workout schedule, whatever. And then this is the key right here, okay? And this is the final phase, and this is where a lot of people this part 4 and 5 is probably the most important part and what most women skip. The dieting phase, I'm going to be honest, it sucks, but it's also exciting. And if you're a driven individual, it feels pretty good when you're making progress. Like you're like, oh, I'm making progress. I'm going to keep showing up. Just like in the gym. If you're showing up at the gym and every day, like you're like winning workouts and you're hitting new PRs, like you want to keep showing up. But when suddenly you're not anymore, it's like, I don't really want to go to class. I'm just going to work out on my own. It's the same thing here. When the weight stops dropping, the motivation stops. And it's where we want to look at increasing energy availability, okay, which is very important for women, even if you are overweight. It's why I don't recommend living in a deficit, because with low energy available, even at a healthy weight, you are at risk for injuries. You are at risk for hormone imbalances. You are at risk for all of the things that you don't want to happen, okay? We also want to look at setting lifestyle guidelines for maintenance that are going to work for you. So I track my food. Am I obsessive about it? No. Do I sometimes eyeball things? Yes. Do I keep it pretty consistent? Yes. I like that data because I can always, it does not bother me. It's part of my lifestyle and part of my habits to just jump in my app and do that when I'm eating breakfast. However, you might be a mom of three kids and breakfast is your time with your kids and you don't want to be on your phone tracking your food, right? I want this to be the transition that works for you. So whether it's moving away from tracking, whether it's sticking with tracking, we have to know what fits your lifestyle, along with making sure that you are confident at like the structure of your meals and knowing how to listen to your body, knowing what it looks like to be intentional with your food and intuitive. Okay, intuitive eating isn't, I want a donut for breakfast. I believe in intentional intuitive eating. It's, you know what, like, man, I'm really craving a donut. I want to have a donut, but I know I need protein. So you know what? Like, okay, I always eat really good for breakfast. Saturday morning, I'm gonna get the donut, but I'm gonna have a protein shake with it. Like, that's balance. Okay. It's like looking at intentional and intuitive eating. Intuitive eating is also, I'm hungry still, but I shouldn't be eating. That's not intuitive. I'm hungry still. Maybe I should try and eat something. The more you tell yourself you shouldn't, like you're going to want it more. So we want to find the path that serves you best, along with knowing what self-monitoring looks like. Okay. Weighing in is self-monitoring. Ladies, I didn't even say this yet, but like we have got to get desensitized from the scale. If the scale is your dopamine hit, that's where you win, or it's where you lose, you got to stop living by the scale. It's just like your blood pressure. It tells you nothing. Okay. It's literally a side effect of what you're doing in your nutrition. So we need to focus on the things that matter and track trends. You can't avoid it. You can't obsess over it. It just has to be what it is. If you truly want to have a healthy relationship with your body, you don't go to the doctor like, don't take my blood sugar, don't take my blood sugar, don't take my blood pressure because I don't want them to be bad. Your body, it's a metric. It's one more metric. Okay. So that is what your plan should look like. And what a lot of women don't spend the time doing. Okay. It's, hey, what's my macros? Hey, like, let me do this clean eating thing. Let me try this meal plan. Let me just cut my calories. All right, I'm going to jump back on the bandwagon this week. Like, no, like you need to have a clear cut plan. And you don't have to say, okay, it's month one, or I'm 6 weeks in or 8 weeks in. It's just overall looking at like this is a 6 month plan. So it might be June, it might be August or September, but you know that you have kind of a baseline of what it should look like to get through a successful transition. And guess what? When you do something for 6 to 12 months, you change. That's how long adaptation in lifestyle, in training, and all that stuff changes. In fact, I made a post today about what I eat a day. Okay. And I did that not because I'm like, oh, what I eat a day is so, awesome. But the thing about what I eat a day, and I think about it, I don't have any cravings. I've got zero cravings. I can see food, I don't have to eat it. It doesn't bother me. Sometimes I might feel judged because I think that people like because I'm not eating it that they think I want to have it or something and I should be having it. I have zero cravings. I feel good. My digestion's great. And I spent the majority of my 20s and even a little bit of my early 30s trying restrictive diets, losing and gaining the same weight, never feeling in control of myself. And then I spent, when I got sick when I turned 35, spent time trying to fix that. And I honestly feel like I have, like, what I eat is just part of my day. It doesn't consume me. I don't have to think about it. It just is what it is. I don't spend a lot of time, and that's why made that post. That's my goal. My goal, but I've been eating this way for so long. Have I made adaptations to my nutrition? Yes, I definitely have. I've like added things in, I've taken things away, I've shifted meals, but it's literally the same types of foods on repeat because that's what works for me. And if you have a lot of cravings, something I didn't mention in my post today is I truly do think that when you remove things from your diet, you just don't crave them as much. So and they don't become as like special, but just something to think about. All right, so key takeaways here, and then we're going to kind of keep going. Nutrition priorities plus small adjustments equal big results. In fact, Pareto principle, 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. So you might be looking at all this like, wow, that's a lot. Okay. Like we're going to talk about like, where are you right now? Where do you want to be? Oftentimes, trying to follow plans that aren't meant for you are why you're failing. Okay. So you have to build, there is no plan. The plan has not been built yet. If you're here, there is no plan out there that's going to work for you. You have to build your plan. Your life is very different than my life and everybody on this call's life and everybody that's watching the replay's life. Okay. The goal is consistency. Consistency with changes. It's layering things in. All right, I'm doing that. Next step, next step, next step. And listening to what your body is saying. That is how you make progress. And that is how you change your body for the better. This is how you optimize your nutrition to look and feel your best. It's not about, specific numbers. It's not about, the cut bulk. Do I need to cut bulk? Oh God, I don't even go down that rabbit hole. Don't even know why I said that. Don't even want to go down that rabbit hole. Okay. But let's get you lean to a place where it's supporting good hormone health because too low of body fat, too high of body fat, both equally disruptors to hormones. Um, and let's get you staying there and feeling good and knowing that you can do this wherever you're at with whatever life brings you. And at the end of the day, if you're over 35 and you have kids, okay, you're also either what do they call it? Is it Gen X? I'm a millennial. Okay, whatever the age group before me is, okay? You guys are the example for your kids and your grandkids. Think about what your examples were, because I know what mine were. Weight Watchers, Atkins, low calorie everything back in the night. Everything was fat free in the 90s. I mean, I looked at people that were like, now I look back, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I wanted to look like that. I look at old movie stars, I'm like, oh my God, she's so skinny. Okay. It's coming back a little bit, by the way. But think about what you were exposed to and think about how that fed your beliefs around nutrition. Everything that I just showed you here, nothing that I showed you here is like your kid would look at that and be like, oh my gosh, I'm fat. I need to get on a diet. This is you being like, no, this is how we eat for health. Your kids could follow this plan and be healthy. So that's the goal. All right. Just going to share a quick little story here. One of my clients, and I'll be honest, guys, I don't do a ton of, um, shares of my clients and their photos. And I'm going to be honest, it's just very, I don't want to say it's cringe. Maybe I should be okay with being cringe, but my clients' stories and transformations, if they share them, I will share them. And it's not so because I'm like, oh, hey, you're going to get these great results. I want you guys to see like what happens when you commit to something that's different than what you've already done. The majority of people that come to me like, wow, your program is very different, or your coaching style is very different. Your accessibility is very different. You're there to answer questions for me because my goal is that you're getting the support that you need. Okay. So Julie, she came to me, she had done things with like RP diet, macros, clean eating. She's a very busy individual, full-time career. She just had no idea where she should be. And she kind of, I'm going to be honest, she had pretty much given up on dieting. She was like, I'm just done dieting. I just need to try something different. And one of the first things I did was I encouraged her to keep some flexibility in her diet. We increased her calories a little bit and definitely had her really focusing on, in fact, I think when we increased her calories, her weight naturally dropped. Like, I think she was trying so hard to be so careful. I've only had to make a couple of number adjustments on her. And we really have focused on consistency. The girl has definitely had some high calorie days, but she stayed consistent. And here we are on the other side of things. She's pretty happy with her body composition right now. She's feeling really good. And honestly, she did this through a really tough time in her life. So I'm pretty freaking proud of her, So just something to kind of think about is like you guys have to realize that often the more restrictive way is not the right way. And you know that because you feel it. And just something to talk to you guys about. All right. So I am going to be just finishing this up, and I will send you guys this form. I didn't put the link here. I am going to be starting a jump start. I do these usually 2 or 3 times a year. Last year I only did it twice, and because they are a lot of work on me, but I do truly love working and kind of giving you guys a little bit of an idea of how to start your journey, and how to kind of how we do things in my program with FitBody. So if you do want to join in on the Jumpstart, I have not officially put signups out yet. It is going to be starting, and this is the other thing about me. I was going to start it on February 2nd, but I think I'm going to push it back one more week to February 9th. The other thing about me is I'm OCD. I'm OCD about everything, and I want to make sure everything is lined up, schedule's good, that the time for the calls are good. But what you guys are basically going to really get is you're going to get personalized approach to your nutrition. So we're going to be looking at, what you're going to get guidance on, like how to figure out how to set your nutrition needs. We're going to be looking at any diet baggage you might have. You're going to get some support. We're going to have weekly group calls, and you're going to understand the frameworks that you need to put all of this stuff into play. And it's going to show you a very simple way to do it. So if you guys do want to jump in on this, I am going to be putting more information out there. I'm going to be teasing it next weekend, but I'm going to be giving you guys the form to go ahead and sign up in advance. Again, it does start in February, so we're not going to really talk too much about this, but I will be telling you guys are going to get first dibs on any spots for this as well. But that, I believe, is the end of my presentation. Yep. So I'm going to hit the stop share, and we're going to spend some time. I know that Andrea had a question, but I'm going to also open up the floor to any specific questions or anything from this that you guys might want to take away, or that you guys had comments on. And I'll start with answering Andrea's question. And you guys, there is a chat box. If you can't turn yourself off mute, you can feel free to pop your questions in there as well. And I'm going to start with Andrea's question then. So Andrea's question had to do more with a strength issue. And this is common. Andrea, are you a CrossFitter?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So one of the biggest differences between CrossFit and bodybuilding, metabolically, they're actually, I want to say comparable in that most of the um, most of the bodybuilding community, they do push like progressive overload, but the hypertrophy work is high rep, which is what CrossFit is. The biggest difference is when y'all are doing CrossFit, do you think when your coach is yelling at you to go faster when you're doing thrusters and burpees that you're thinking about, am I using my glutes or my quads right now? And am I using, or when I'm doing my pull-ups, I'm doing these butterfly pull-ups. Am I using my lats or am I using my biceps? We're not thinking about that kinds of stuff. Okay. So when it comes to actually, my cat, sorry. When it comes to muscle activation, a lot of people start to go into these different drills, which can be helpful. Things like, my cat is, sorry, he's just getting a little rowdy over here, knocking down my computer. Different activation drills can be helpful for you to feel those muscle groups, right? So, like before doing pull-ups, doing some like scap retractions and really feeling your lats. Doing glute bridges to feel what it feels like to have your glutes turned on. Doing things like that. However, nothing changes if you're not focusing on that muscle group in the movement. So, my suggestion to you, Andrea, and to any CrossFitter who struggles with that mind muscle connection is to take a few of your workouts a week where it's a movement that you're like, so for instance, it might be thrusters. And you're like, I'm so quad dominant when I squat. All
Hmm.
I feel is my quads. And in that workout, for that movement, for that day, not worrying about the weight, not worrying about going as fast as you can. If the rep scheme is 15, 12, and 9, when you pick up that bar for 15 reps, on the way down, you're feeling your quads, or sorry, you're feeling your glutes. You're like, I'm feeling my glutes right now. I'm squeezing my glutes and I'm going down slow, and it's going to make these thrusters hurt a little bit more, but I'm going to be focusing on what I'm doing. And I'm going to focus on those muscle groups. When I'm doing deadlifts, okay, I normally feel my back. When I go to pull this bar off the ground, the first thing I want to feel is my hamstrings. Do I feel that? Great. And actually pushing yourself to work in the movements, and that's going to help you to get better at feeling the movement, feeling those different muscle groups when you're doing CrossFit. The other thing is adding in some more intentional strength work to strengthen those muscle groups, because often when muscle groups are inactive, it's not because you're they're not strong. Your central nervous system is not connecting those muscle groups because other muscle groups are taking over. So, for instance, a lot of women that deal with anterior shoulder pain, pain in the front of their shoulder, or even injuries, rotator cuff is because their posterior shoulder isn't strong. And they don't even realize that when they're doing things like bench press, they're not even activating the back of their shoulders. So it's like intentionally doing some strength work that really focuses on those types of movements or muscle groups.
Right. That's what I've been trying to do now.
Yeah. So those are all what I would suggest. Heather
Okay.
says, how do you find maintenance calories, trial and error? It is truly tracking. Yes, you are truly tracking your calories and remembering it's not calories. Okay. I want to take a step back. Ladies, yes, calories matter most. Okay. It is nutrients. All right, because guess what? If you're just eating more calories from, oh, I'm gonna eat more pretzels. I'm gonna have more cupcakes. I'm gonna have more, like, that's not going to build a sustainable diet. Not that that's what you're doing, Heather, but when it comes to finding maintenance, it's knowing what nutrients your body needs. In fact, I get this from a lot of diet culture is clients that come to me that have been on a low fat diet because they're on a higher volume diet, they start to become fat phobic and they want to keep adding carbs in, or adding calories in for more protein and carbs. Like, I need more of these to feel full when their body needs fats. Like, so it's knowing, okay, where is your baseline for your fats, carbs, and proteins, and then going from there. Um, can you talk a little bit more about how finding maintenance might increase the scale weight? Okay, yes. So when we're talking about finding maintenance calories, all right, we should not see the scale continue to climb up. It shouldn't be this, I'm eating more maintenance calories and my weight's going up, 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 up. That means that you're now in a surplus. Okay. If you have been diligently tracking your food for, call it 4 weeks. And I mean, by the way, when you guys are finding maintenance, let's take a step back. When you guys are finding maintenance and you guys are going to a deficit, okay, you need to be tracking your data accurately. And I'm going to start with that. Okay. I didn't say this before. I'm going to say it now. This is not about being obsessive with your nutrition, because I get women like, oh, I don't want to have to weigh my food. I don't want to, like, if you're not weighing your food and you're not tracking everything, you're not serious about wanting to figure out your body. And I'm going to say it just like that. I'm going to call it out. Okay. And I'm not saying that anybody on here is that. But if you are not willing to weigh and track your food, you are not serious about changing your body. You are not serious about that. It doesn't mean that you have to track it in an app. You might have a different system for tracking. It might be, I eat this much oatmeal, this much this, but you have to have a system for tracking. Okay. Um, but if you have been consistent with weighing and tracking your food, intentionally bringing things up, okay, you should not keep seeing the scale climb up. However, okay, it should go up maybe 3 to 5 pounds, maybe 3 to 5 pounds. And here's why. It depends on what your diet was like before you started. So if before you started, you were not eating any carbs, okay, you're going to be eating more volume. So if you're eating no carbs and you're eating mostly fats for calories, that's a lot more calorie dense and weighs a lot less. So 1 ounce of oil is 120 calories, and 1 ounce divided by 16 ounces equals a pound. So that, what is that? 0.16. Okay. 100 calories is also, a serving of oatmeal. Okay. So you can see that food volume is going to weigh something. So the amount of food you're consuming in your belly, you have more food. So it's kind of like going back to the bucket analogy. Okay. Your bucket's full with something heavier. And if you're eating more carbs, every gram of carbs is going to store up to 4 grams of glycogen. So in your muscles, glycogen gets stored for energy. Okay, that's a good thing. All right. If you're eating more carbohydrates, you're going to see your weight go up a little bit from the glycogen stores. Also, why photos are important because photos will likely show you, wow, I look way leaner when I'm eating a little bit more carbs. Yeah, because your muscles are popping. Your muscles are saturated with glycogen. Okay, so that's the scale weight should not keep climbing. Usually, if the scale is climbing up, that person has increased too high. If it's going up, 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 or again, like it could be that they just needed that initial bump up, but it should settle out. And then from there, it's okay, now we're at ceiling, we're going to drop back down. Or, why I mentioned the first part is if somebody was not diligently tracking, whether it's they were on vacation, they were, whatever, it was the holidays, or they just weren't being very consistent with tracking on the weekends, or maybe they weren't tracking like little things. All of that stuff can add up, and they might be eating way more calories than they realize over time because your weekly average and your monthly average matters more. Hopefully that answered your question. What other questions you guys have? Any takeaways? I know coming off, actually asking questions is hard. Things about your cycle, hormones, diet myths you've heard, anything? No. My cat is just loving on my computer right now. He just wants to come. He needs a diet. Anything else? Let's see. Okay. How can hormones for HRT affect energy needs? Honestly, if anything, it might increase them slightly if they're low. And here's why, is if your hormones are a little off, and it's causing metabolic changes from a negative way, um, sometimes by increasing your hormones by, HRT therapy, it can cause your thermic effect it can cause your BMR to raise. It can cause your that to go up. And so you might have a little bit higher energy needs. I will also say this about HRT therapy or HRT is sometimes that can also influence the scale. I've had women who are doing like, whether it's weekly or biweekly testosterone injections or some kind of therapies, or after they get their pellets. Sometimes we see some water weight fluctuations with that. That's normal. So, but it can actually increase your energy needs, if anything. And typically, if that happens, what you'll notice is going back to intuition, you might find that appetite increases all of a sudden. So, that was a good question. How do I control my hunger on a deficit, especially after the gym? Okay, I love, love, love this question. So, going into some meal timing stuff, all right? If you guys are in a deficit, the most important times you can eat is after your workout and before bed. Like those two times matter more than anything because
Mm,
though that's going to encourage you to have better sleep. And
mm,
that's also going to make sure you're getting good nutrition for recovery and to control your appetite later on. What I would say first and foremost, Shelby, is to make sure that you are eating enough. So going into finding maintenance first, some women drop their calories entirely too much. And then what happens is they're literally all day afraid of eating too much. I don't know what time of day you work out, but it's like, I got to save my calories. I don't want to eat too much because I don't want to run out later on. And they're trying to like figure it out. And while there will be a little bit of noise like that if you have a very long day, you want to make sure that you are prioritizing nutrition in that post-workout window. Um, and especially on the higher intensity training days. I also don't like if I have clients that I know do CrossFit specifically, I will normally give them ranges on calories, especially from carbs, because so CrossFit, you might have a day where the workout's like back squats and then you're doing like a 5 minute Metcon. And then you have a day where it's like a 30 plus minute workout, right? It's very different. And you leaving that 30 plus minute workout and being like, I'm freaking starving is different than you being like, oh, I just did some squats and a quick little Metcon. Like very different feeling. So that's where we kind of go into that intuition a little bit and looking at tracking trends and what's going on with your weight before making adjustments. And then when it comes to fasting, I'm going to be honest, guys. I don't recommend fasting. I don't. I think it's the only reason why fasting works for those of you guys that have questions about fasting is it makes it easier for a lot of people to control calories. So if you're cutting out times of the day that you're eating, it shortens the window of eating, so it's a little bit easier for you to create a calorie deficit. What I do recommend is structured eating. Okay, so rather than fasting, most women would benefit from sticking to only eating a certain number of meals a day. Call it fasting between your meals. Like literally, a lot of women end up snacking too much. Stop snacking. If you can commit to literally going 12 hours without eating, like you're doing that, why not just actually commit to like not doing the random snacking and sticking to 3 meals a day or 3 meals in a post-workout? Actually saying, I'm going to stick to this plan. Now, if you're in a deficit and you prefer, so whenever I was in a deficit, I personally, back in the day when I was coaching CrossFit full time, my day started at 4 o'clock in the morning. I would coach CrossFit 5, 6, 7, and then I had a break and then I would work out. I didn't want to eat my breakfast at 4 o'clock in the morning on a deficit, and then I would be hungry again at 7 a.m. And then so I'm like, well, I'm not going to waste the calories at 4 a.m. I'm just not. I'm like, I'm going to wait until after I coach, and then I'm going to eat, and then I'm going to train, and then I'm going to eat again. So I built that strategy in. I wasn't like, oh, the magic of fasting. It was more so like, I'm just going to delay eating because it doesn't make sense right now for me to eat these calories when I would rather just fight through the hunger here and be okay with eating when it's closer to my training time. But I don't really recommend fasting for women. In fact, there's a lot of negative connotations about fasting. I don't really believe a lot of that either. Like, I don't think fasting is like, oh my God, it's gonna cause you to, mess up your hormones or whatever. I just think it's unnecessary. And for a lot of women, it does lead to a lot more food noise. It leads to a lot more thinking about food. Because even when I think back, I remember thinking about food the entire time I was coaching. I was like, I got through it, but I remember being like, I can't wait to eat my breakfast. I can't wait to eat my breakfast. And that was always how I felt. Good questions, though. There's a lot of misinformation about how much protein your body can process and utilize at a time. Is there a general recommendation for how many grams you should consume at one time? And is there a point where consuming too much at one time is exerted and not utilized? Okay. Love, love, love this. All right. This is actually another big thing that I do with a lot of my clients. Um, Nutrient intake and nutrients absorbed are two different things. So all of the calories you take in doesn't mean that your body's going to absorb all of them. Okay, so that's really, really, really important for a lot of women to hear. Um, so when it comes to protein, okay, your body does there. It is a myth that your body can only process 30 grams of protein at a time. That's like the old school myth. However, where that myth came from is the truth that muscle protein synthesis has a cap of 30 grams. Now, when I'm saying that, it doesn't mean that if you take in more protein, that your body's not going to eventually synthesize that protein. It's kind of like there's protein going into a bank and it's sitting there, and your body's going to synthesize it as needed. It doesn't mean that it's not going to be absorbed. However, okay, from a digestion standpoint, okay, your guts, the amount of nutrients you consume, and this is not just for protein, it's for everything, carbs, fats, everything, okay? Your digestion is only going to absorb so many of those nutrients at a time. Sometimes, and that's also where fasting can kind of do people wrong, if you're only eating 1 or 2 meals a day, your body is likely not absorbing all of those nutrients as well. A lot of it is probably just getting passed right through your system. So you're better off breaking down your protein to ensure that your body is absorbing it better. However, you don't have to stress about like 35 grams, right? But if you're like, okay, I'm having 100 grams of protein between 6 and 8 p.m., and you're having 20 grams all day, you're better off having that protein available all day. And it's also really important to remember that the food that you ate yesterday and the day before are the nutrients your body is using today. So the food that you're consuming today is being processed and broken down. Like your body doesn't just process it right away. It's got to be broken down. With the exception of if you're having really quick sugar, that's going to go right to your bloodstream. Okay? But for the rest point, that's everything else is like the days before. That's also why I don't typically recommend dropping your calories on a rest day. It doesn't really make sense unless you're like doing a ton of training and you're eating extra carbs for that training, then you might drop your carbs a little bit, but everything else should stay pretty much the same. You're welcome. These are good questions. This is what I'm here for. Yeah. All right. Well, if any other questions pop up, I'm going to stand here for a few more minutes. Again, you guys, everybody that is not watching this live, you guys are all going to get the replay, and I'll send the replay out to you guys as well. And I will be putting some more information out there on my Jumpstart. My plan is I'm probably going to push it back to the 9th, just looking at the date. I like to make sure that everything is smooth. And Stephanie was already asking, she's like, Cheryl, what do we need to do for the Jumpstart? I'm like, don't worry, I'm not ready for that yet. I wanted to get you guys taken care of first and foremost. I love doing these things. In fact, I was supposed to do this in December, but weekend got crazy that weekend with some family stuff, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to push it back to January. And I do hope this was helpful for you ladies. If you guys have other questions, you could always feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to do an assessment, kind of take a look at what you're currently doing, and we can always go from there. But does anybody have any other questions before we sign off? Going once, going twice. All right. Well, thank you, ladies, all for coming on. And for those of you guys watching the replay, hopefully you guys all found this helpful. I will hopefully talk to you guys all soon. Bye.